Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Jake Rowe live from Jacksonville after number one Georgia's 42-20 win over the Gators. Jake, it was an up and down game, but it was a rivalry game nonetheless, as we are accustomed to seeing down there in the cocktail party. Florida made it interesting for the Dogs, but Georgia still comes out with a dominant win.
Yeah, fast start, fast ending, ugly third quarter. And I think that's kind of what you got to point to there. If you look at the kind of the 9 quarters where Georgia played Kent State and Missouri in that third quarter against Florida, where Georgia's had to play kind of its most competitive football this year, what's the common theme? 8 turnovers against. I mean, 8 turnovers for you, 0 for them. And that's you look no further than that. I think if you're going to turn it over just over and over like that, and it was, a lot of different guys to blame and a lot of weird things that happened. It was a weird game, but Georgia did weather the storm there in the third quarter, got 2 more touchdowns, one out of Dejon Edwards and another one out of Dejon Edwards, who is just an absolute stud and is playing really well right now, over 100 yards, first 100-yard game for Georgia this season, and Georgia put it away.
Honey Dejon. A lot of fans coming in, go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs across the board. Kirby Smarts told CBS immediately after the game that the win went to Coach Dooley, of course. Jacksonville, a very special place for Vince. Dooley dominated the Gators in his career, and, of course, his final game as Georgia's head coach, also in Jacksonville in the Gator Bowl. So an emotional game for Georgia with everything going on off the field. On the field, Jake, Georgia comes out of this one with a lot of injuries. Let's see. Darius Smith comes to mind. Nolan Smith, of course. Xavier Truss. Marius Mims, the list goes on. What jumps off the page to you the most as far as Georgia's injury concerns go?
Well, really interesting to see what Kirby Smart's going to say on Nolan Smith. I shared my thoughts on that one at halftime. I felt precautionary just by the way things were handled down on the sideline. I could be wrong on that, but I think Kirby will tell us something here pretty soon. Nolan remained out there. I remained involved, didn't have a sling or anything, so I think that's good news. Marius Mims' injury looked bad. I hope it's not a super serious one. I hope it's one of those that look better than it was or worse than it was, but it looked kind of rough. And, that's a little bit of a loss there to see because, Georgia's got 2 really good tackles, but, you like to have 3. You really do like to have 3. And Marius Mims was number 3. I can't see much of any way he's going to be able to, get ready and play next week based on how much pain he was in down there. Xavier Truss is a toe issue. They said he could have came back. Devin Willock, I thought, filled in and did a really nice job there. Then you talk about Darius Smith, that's a guy, special teamer. I don't know what the nature of that injury was, but again, it's to a reserve. But I think the big one right now is Nolan Smith. That's the one that you're kind of crossing your fingers on if you're a Georgia fan. And again, didn't look super, concerning. Obviously it's concerning a little bit when he doesn't go back in the game, but it wasn't one of those situations where I would say, okay, this guy looked like he was in a lot of pain or he was very uncomfortable. He looked at ease.
Good news and bad news in this game. I'd say the good news is Brock Bowers decided to show up, get off the bus, and just had a touchdown fall in his lap. Bad news is Georgia's turnovers, and Stetson Bennett's up and down performance. When you look at the stat sheet, 50% completions today. Can't have that. You got to do better than that. 316 yards passing, that's good. 2 touchdowns, that's good. 2 picks, that's bad. One of the picks kind of a freak deal with Dominic Blaylock there on the sideline, but one of them just a bad throw to Edwards. So what do you make of Stetson's performance? It's kind of been like this throughout the season, but today was really a mixed bag.
Yeah, got really good teams. And I'm not really even just talking about the interceptions. I'm talking about kind of the throws behind guys over the middle. Lucky a couple of those, maybe those didn't get picked off, so maybe that's kind of where the the fluke interception comes in. But some inaccurate throws over middle, some really good ones. Like that's the crazy part is like I think the throw to Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint for 19 yards there. I believe that was in the third quarter. When Georgia was on that touchdown drive to make it 35-20. Great throw to Bowers to get the first touchdown drive started. Several other really good ones, but a couple that weren't caught. Georgia had 3 drops, but also just some bad ones. And he had some throwaways and things of that nature. And I don't think the completion percentage is completely a story of hey, Stetson Bennett's not accurate. I think he can be accurate at times, and he showed that, but he can also be inaccurate. And Georgia's just going to need more consistent play like that because you look at it, and his receivers dropped 3 balls for him. They also helped him on some balls, and then you look and you say, well, he made some bad throws, he made some great ones. So Georgia's going to need more of the great than the bad, a lot more against Tennessee next week.
Chris Pugh says we got to find a way to get Arian Smith into the game plan. They did get him on one of those pass interference calls late in the game. They were going for him, but it almost feels like that's part of Georgia's game plan. The free play. We saw it happen in the national championship with Pickens on a couple late throws, and then tonight you get the free play, get Brenton Cox to jump off sides, and you hit that really nice throw, like you mentioned, to Brock Bowers, and then they do it again with Arian Smith. But to your point about the drops, and Mean Mug and Mutt points it out here, too many turnovers today. Obviously, that's a huge surprise for Georgia for me this season that I don't think people predicted to be part of the pie. When you look at all the ingredients in this team, having Georgia turn the ball over more was definitely not something I predicted. It's not something you would predict anyway, but it's not good nonetheless. And then when you look at drops like Ladd had and like Darnell had a couple of them too, there were throws where Stetson was on the money, and that's such a rhythm thing. You got to continue to hammer and be consistent in your passing game, and that's what's hamstringing Georgia right now, at least with my eyes anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's it was like they kind of came up at different moments. I mean, the Darnell one didn't hurt Georgia as much, the drop, but the McConkey one kind of ended up having to make Georgia go for it on 4th down. And the turnovers are something that they pop up in bunches. There's like I said, 9 quarters, 8 turnovers against Mississippi, against Kent State, Missouri, and now Florida. And that's the weirdest football that Georgia has experienced. The most competitive football that Georgia has experienced all year is when it has given the other team advantages. Now, the good thing is they've shown the ability to win football games and be really good and be good enough when they're not playing their best and when they do give up those mistakes. But those are things that you're probably not going to get away with, and you just wonder if they can kind of keep it at bay for 4 quarters against a team like Tennessee or even SEC championship game down the road, or Kentucky, or even Mississippi State.
Last thing before we wrap up, Jake, you got to get back to work in the press box there at TIAA Bank Stadium or Field or whatever they're calling it now. Like you said, you got to put this behind you before you get to Tennessee, obviously. And I think Georgia's shown the ability to hit the reset button, hit the refresh button, and move on. I think just silver lining, if you're a Georgia fan looking at this saying there's no way Tennessee is going to go into Athens and lose if Georgia plays this way. I agree. I think the flip side of that, though, maybe it helps Georgia that you come out of this bye week and play a team like Florida that isn't the best remaining team on your schedule. You kind of get an opportunity to exercise those demons and get challenged in the process and learn some lessons on defense.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I mean, I think another thing that's going to help this team is coming up and getting to a fast start again. They're kind of making it a habit after those 2 games where they didn't get off to a fast start. But a quick stat here for you, Wes, and this kind of blows me away. Georgia's now turned the ball over 9 times on the year. And
how many turnovers does Georgia
8,
have?
And 9 times all year long, and Georgia has turned it over 8 times against Florida, Kent State, and Missouri.
Yeah, that's
so
tough.
That's and then you look at the other games and the average margin of victory. I mean, you're well over 30 points, 35 points in the other games where they've only turned it over 1 time, and that was once against Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, spin zone here, you can say, well, that's bad. Obviously, it's bad if you do it against really good teams. Or you can say, look, they've turned it over that much and they're still 8-0, still number one in the country, still beating rivals by 22 points. Appreciate it, Jake. We'll do this again tomorrow night, Sunday night, like we always do with our final thoughts. And I'll let you get back to it, man. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Safe travels back to Georgia. Thank you all for watching the Georgia Show on DawgsHQ. We will wrap it up here. Go ahead and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel if you don't already, or if you're listening to a replay on your podcast platform of choice. Follow along there too. Apple, Spotify, we got it all. Leave us a review. Leave us a kind review with your words and your 5-star rating as well. That really helps us as we continue to grow. You guys are a huge, huge part of that in the comments and by telling friends about us too. Glad to see Georgia get back into the swing of things after that bye week break. Good to see some ball again. You know what's next. It's Tennessee. Stick with DawgsHQ and our $1 promo for 1 year of premium content and all of the other content right here on DawgsHQ's YouTube channel. Like I told Jake, y'all can join us too. Sunday nights, every week, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll do it live then as well with a full slate of SEC games in our rear view and a little bit more context from the Dogs game as well. Thanks for following. Thanks for watching. It's always fun, and it's great to be a Georgia Bulldog when you beat the Gators in Jacksonville. Y'all have a great weekend.